President Ibrahim Traoré had just completed a day filled with pressing political matters, his mind swirling with the weight of leadership. As he stepped out into the evening rain, heading for his car, something caught his eye, a lone figure huddled under a small overhang, seeking shelter from the storm. He paused, squinting through the rain to get a better look. To his shock, it was a woman he knew all too well, a woman from his past, Aissata. Once, she had been his first love, the one who had filled his world with light and hope. But that was many years ago, before life and circumstances tore them apart. Now, as he stood there watching her in the rain, it was clear that life had not been kind to her. She was no longer the vibrant young woman he remembered, but a shadow of herself, struggling with homelessness. Overcome with emotion, Ibrahim stood frozen for a moment. The sight of her, the woman who once shared his dreams, now reduced to a mere survivor on the streets, stirred something deep inside him. He could feel the weight of regret, guilt, and nostalgia all at once. Without thinking, he stepped out into the rain, walking toward her. Aissata noticed him approaching, and for a moment, their eyes met. There was recognition, but also a wall of distance built by time and hardship. Ibrahim spoke first, his voice trembling with emotion. He had no idea what to say, but his heart knew it had to be said. The reunion was bittersweet, yet it was the beginning of something neither of them could have predicted. The initial encounter was awkward, filled with a silence that spoke volumes. Aissata, her face hardened by years of struggle, was hesitant. She had seen too many people look at her with pity, and she was no longer willing to be anyone's charity case. Ibrahim, on the other hand, was determined to make up for lost time, yet he could not shake the sense of shame that lingered in the air. After all, it had been years since they last saw each other. So many choices, so many lives lived in different directions. "I can't ask you for anything," Aissata said, her voice barely above a whisper. It was more of a statement than a question, an echo of the pride she once held. But Ibrahim, sensing her reluctance, reassured her. "I'm not asking you to," he said. "Let's just sit down. Talk. Please." After a few more moments of silence, Aissata nodded reluctantly. She agreed to have a meal with him, though it wasn't charity that she sought, it was closure, perhaps, or a sense of connection to a past life that now seemed like a distant memory. Ibrahim drove them to a quiet restaurant, the city streets glistening in the rain as they sat across from each other. As the meal progressed, the walls between them began to crumble. They talked about the years that had passed, the choices they had made, and the paths they had followed. Ibrahim, now a president, and Aissata, now a homeless woman, found common ground in their shared history. Of dreams and promises broken, of a love that was lost, and of the weight of regret. They laughed a little, cried a little, and for the first time in years, both felt a flicker of warmth from the other. The meal wasn't just about food, it was about rediscovering each other. It was about remembering the love they had once shared and wondering if, perhaps, there was still a chance for them to find a way back to something, anything, together. After their dinner, as they sat in the car, Ibrahim found himself looking at Aissata with renewed determination. He had come to a realization: he could not just offer her help in the traditional sense, in the form of charity or temporary relief. No, she deserved more than that. He owed her more than that. "Aissata," Ibrahim began, his voice steady but serious, "I don't want to offer you a handout. I want to offer you something far more valuable: leadership. You have a story, an experience that can change lives. I want you to run a foundation for women who are in situations like yours, who are living on the streets, struggling to survive. You have the strength, the wisdom, the understanding that no one else can bring. You could lead them." Aissata stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had been through so much, and now this man, the one who had once been the love of her life, was offering her the opportunity to lead, not to be saved. She wasn't sure if she was ready for such a responsibility, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized it was exactly what she needed, something that would give her life purpose again. "You really think I can do it?" she asked quietly, almost afraid to believe it. Ibrahim nodded confidently, his gaze unwavering. I don't just think it, I know it. I've seen your strength, Aissata. You have the heart of a leader. Let me help you put it to work. For the first time in a long while, Aissata felt a spark of hope. Something to fight for, something to rebuild her life with. It wasn't just a handout, it was a second chance, a way to use her experiences to make a difference. 3 days after their conversation, Aissata and her son, Sulian, moved into a modest but warm apartment. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. The small space represented a fresh start, a chance for Aissata to rebuild her life and create something new for her son. The apartment was bare but for a few essential items, a bed, a table, a couple of chairs, but it was safe. And that was enough. When they walked through the door, Aissata was met with a surprise. On the small dining table sat a teddy bear, worn from years of love, and a note from Ibrahim. The bear was something from their shared past, a symbol of a simpler time when they were just two young people in love, dreaming of a future together. The note was brief but heartfelt, a message of support and encouragement. Aissata, the note read, you've always been stronger than you knew. I believe in you. Tears welled up in her eyes as she clutched the bear to her chest. It was a gesture that spoke volumes, more than Ibrahim could have known. For the first time in years, Aissata felt truly seen. Not as a homeless woman, not as someone in need, but as a person with potential, with purpose. With Sulian by her side, Aissata knew she had a lot of work ahead of her. But this apartment, this new beginning, felt like a blank canvas, ready to be filled with the next chapter of her life. A chapter where she wasn't just surviving, but thriving. A chapter where she could make a real difference for others who had once been in her shoes. As she settled into the apartment, Aissata felt a deep sense of gratitude and determination. She had been given a second chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. The transition from homelessness to leadership was not an easy one for Aissata, but she threw herself into the task with a resilience that surprised even her. Every morning, she rose early, ready to face the challenges of her new role. She attended training sessions designed to equip her with the necessary skills to lead the new foundation Ibrahim had entrusted to her. At first, she struggled with doubts. Could she really make a difference? Would people listen to her? But with each passing day, her confidence grew. The foundation was built with a focus on empowering homeless women, providing them not just with shelter but with the tools they needed to rebuild their lives. Aissata worked tirelessly, using her lived experience to design programs that met the real needs of these women. She spoke with women who had suffered on the streets, listening to their stories and learning from them. It was through these conversations that Aissata truly began to understand what was needed. Not just a roof over their heads, but a sense of community, dignity, and most importantly, hope. Word began to spread about the new foundation and its programs, and soon, Aissata's leadership was making a significant impact. But with the recognition came the rumors, whispers of a romance between her and Ibrahim. The press, eager for any personal angle on the story, seized on this speculation. At first, Aissata was uncomfortable with the attention, but she quickly realized that her work needed to speak louder than any rumors. In a bold move, Ibrahim took to the public stage to praise Aissata for her incredible transformation. Aissata is a national hero, he declared at a press conference. She has turned her own suffering into something extraordinary, and through her leadership, she is changing the lives of so many women who have nowhere else to turn. His words were a testament to Aissata's strength and dedication, and they silenced many of the rumors. Aissata, while grateful for Ibrahim's support, was determined to keep her focus on the work. She knew that the foundation was not about her, it was about the women who needed help. And every success, every life that was changed, made the sacrifices worth it. The opening event of the New Start Foundation was a defining moment in Aissata's journey. It wasn't just the grand ceremony or the speeches that marked the occasion, it was the woman who took to the podium to speak. As the crowd gathered, Aissata stood quietly at the back, watching the faces in the crowd, knowing that this moment was as much hers as it was for the countless women who had found a safe haven through her work. A woman who had been a part of the Foundation's first program stood at the microphone, her voice trembling with emotion as she shared her story. "I was lost," she began, her eyes brimming with tears. "I had nothing. I was living on the streets, with no hope left in the world. Then, I met Isata. She gave me the strength to believe again. She showed me that I could stand up, that I could rebuild my life." The woman paused, glancing toward Isata, who had tears in her eyes. "Isata saved me. And now, I'm giving back by helping others. This foundation is not just a shelter, it's a lifeline." The crowd erupted into applause, and Isata felt a deep, overwhelming sense of pride. This was why she had worked so hard, to see the transformation in others. To know that her own painful journey had not been in vain, but had allowed her to create something that was changing lives. For Isata, it wasn't about recognition. It wasn't about being in the spotlight. It was about the deep satisfaction of knowing that she was helping to write a new chapter for women who, like her, had once felt invisible and helpless. The event marked a new beginning, not just for her, but for the many women who now had a chance to rebuild their futures. A year had passed since Isata first took on the role of executive director of the New Start Foundation. In that time, she had built the foundation from the ground up, turning it into one of the most successful and impactful organizations in the country. Under her leadership, the foundation had expanded its programs, reaching thousands of women who were once in the same desperate situation she had been in. Isata had become a beacon of hope for women everywhere, someone who had turned her own struggles into a force for good. Her son, Sullian, had blossomed as well. The once quiet, uncertain child who had been part of his mother's journey out of homelessness was now a confident young boy with dreams of his own. He had taken a keen interest in law and often spoke about becoming a lawyer to help others who faced injustice. It filled Isata's heart with pride to see him growing up in a stable home, something she had never had the chance to provide before. Their home life was now filled with laughter and warmth. Isata had created a safe, nurturing environment where Sullian could thrive. There was love in their home, something Isata had longed for during the years she had struggled alone. Their modest apartment, though small, was full of life, a reflection of their journey from despair to hope. But even as she looked at the progress she had made, Isata knew there was more work to be done. The foundation was still growing, and there were still women in need of help. Every day brought new challenges, but Isata was no longer daunted by them. She had found her calling, and with each step forward, she knew she was making a difference. One evening, as the family sat down for a quiet dinner, Sullian looked up at his mother with a curious expression. He had been listening intently as his mother and Ibrahim talked about the work they had done, the foundation they had built, and the many lives they had changed. With a child's innocence, he asked, "Mom, were you and Ibrahim in love?" The question caught Isata by surprise. She paused, thinking about how to answer. She glanced at Ibrahim, who sat across from them, smiling softly. It had been a long time since she had thought about their past relationship. What once seemed like a fairy tale had been overshadowed by years of hardship and loss. "Well," Isata said, her voice filled with a mix of nostalgia and warmth, "Ibrahim and I had something special once. But life took us on different paths, and we've both found our own ways forward." Ibrahim chuckled and added, "But we're still friends, Sullian. That's the most important thing." The room filled with laughter as Sullian grinned, satisfied with the answer. The evening continued with light conversation, and as the night drew to a close, Ibrahim handed over the leadership of the foundation to Isata. It was a symbolic moment, marking the full circle of Isata's journey. From the woman on the streets to the leader of an organization that had become a lifeline for many. As the years passed, the New Start Foundation grew in influence and reach, becoming a model for similar organizations across Africa. Isata's vision, hard work, and unshakable commitment to empowering women had created something truly transformative. She had turned her own pain into a powerful force for good, and in doing so, had created a movement that resonated far beyond her own country. Aissata returned to the spot where she had once been found, homeless and lost, her life in ruins. Standing there now, she was a symbol of everything that could be achieved with determination, compassion, and a willingness to rise from the ashes. The place where she had once stood in despair had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that no matter how low you fall, you can always find a way back up. Her journey was now complete, and as she looked back on everything she had accomplished, Aissata knew that she had not only survived but thrived. She had taken her past and used it to build something greater than herself, a foundation that would continue to change lives. As Aissata stood at the entrance of the New Start Foundation, welcoming a new woman who had come seeking help, she realized something profound. The cycle of hope had come full circle. She had been that woman once, lost, hopeless, searching for a way out. And now, she was the one offering that same hope to someone else. The woman looked at her, unsure, vulnerable, much like Aissata had been all those years ago. But Aissata smiled warmly, extending a hand of friendship and support. "You're not alone," she said softly. "We'll help you find your way." As the woman nodded, a sense of peace washed over Aissata. She had not only survived, but she had triumphed. And now, she was passing on that triumph to others. Helping them to rise, just as she had. The foundation she had built, the lives she had touched, were all part of a greater story. A story of resilience, transformation, and the power of a second chance. Aissata's journey had come full circle, but it wasn't the end. It was just another beginning.